Chapter 2.
At first glance, Connor Creek seems pretty idealistic. Miles of serene pine tree forests, the sound of birds singing, and the rough-around-the-edges charm of a slow-paced, self-sustaining community that takes pride in its rich culture. There are limited histories available of the town, but this much is known. Connor Creek was originally a rest stop and trading post located along a popular route to Oregon. It's changed a bit over the years, but you can still see the vestiges of what the town might have looked like 150 years ago. Dirt roads that escaped the advent of asphalt, small cottages held together by ancient timber, and horse hitches that were never removed. Back in the day, mountaineers and adventurers passed through these woods on their way to make their fortune. The Connor and the McMahon families built this depot of hope and dreams as a respite from an otherwise dangerous journey. But things quickly soured between the founders. What began as a fight over the best way to manage the town's silver mines eventually led to the expulsion of one of the families from the town. Although full of natural beauty and abundant resources, the very foundation of this town's culture is built on disagreement and conflict. Division is in its bones. Nowadays, Connor Creek doesn't see many visitors. Travelers who might have otherwise stopped here now completely bypass the town via airplane or highway. But despite major changes to the outside world, Connor Creek has managed to remain a time capsule of when it was built, in ways both good and bad. What's pulsing under this quaint little town is still a well of dissension and unrest. From the American Podcasting Network, this is the Wayward Guide for the Untrained Eye. I'm Artemis Schue-Horyn.
And I'm your pretty and playful podcast peddler, Paul Schue-Horyn.
Do you have one of those for every week?
Yep. When we last left Connor Creek, things were bad. Things were really, really bad.
Less than an hour after our arrival in his hometown, Ryan, our primary source and only contact, was found dead.
Which was a huge bummer, not only for our story, but because he totally seemed like a guy who brewed his own IPAs, and I sure would have liked to crack a cold one open with him.
Paul!
No, you're right. He was probably a Hefeweizen guy.
The whole ordeal was very disconcerting.
If by disconcerting you mean positively terrifying, then yes. It literally happened feet away from the inn we were staying at.
Or it happened somewhere else and someone dropped the body there to make a statement.
Well, someone with a flair for the grotesque.
Regardless, we knew we had walked into a real story. It seemed too well-timed to be a coincidence, and if someone wanted Ryan gone, then they certainly didn't want us digging around.
But that's exactly what we were about to do. Early the next morning, we hit the trail, with our boss Leslie already breathing down our necks.
Hey, Paul, Artemis isn't picking up her phone, so I thought I'd call you because, I value both of you equally, twins and such. Anyway, the turnaround on this thing is going to be fairly tight, so I want to make sure that I can be of assistance with notes as we go to save time in the edit. Shit! Rebecca, I just remembered it's my anniversary tonight. Give me a table at Osteria Mazza for 2 at 7 p.m., all right? Text my wife, and if they need a card to hold the reservation, put it on the APN Amex. God, this is such a good story. And Ryan Reynolds, I am so excited for you. Artemis, no. I'm excited for... This is Paul. Sorry. I'm excited for you. And Artemis. Paul... another thing, let's keep an eye on the expenses, shall we? We're kind of tightening our belts over here after the last season. No steak dinners on the company card. Oh, right, you're vegan. Do they make Impossible steaks? None of those. Anyway, one more thing. If you have to bribe anyone, make sure to keep it off the books. I'm joking. Oh, did you think I was serious? I mean, could you imagine if I was that horrible of a boss? Ooh, horrible bosses. That'd be a pretty good story. Rebecca, remind me, I have to write that down. What I just said about the boss. Horrible bosses. Yikes.
End of message.
At least he remembered I was vegan.
We didn't want to disappoint Leslie, so we definitely didn't want to report back that the trail had gone cold and our only lead was even colder.
Or that Horrible Bosses was already a successful movie franchise.
So, that first morning in town, we did what we do best.
We ignored our wonderful boss.
And put the town under a microscope, questioning complete and utter strangers about the death of a man we barely even knew.
I don't have the first idea what happened to poor Ryan, but I will say that I am both professionally and personally curious to examine the body.
Rita Waldeberg, the town's mortician.
I've only ever examined those lucky enough to die by natural causes, but I must admit there seems to be something irregular about Ryan's death.
You think?
Do you know what might have done this? Some sort of animal? Or some sort of animal?
Could be. I'll need to perform a more conclusive examination.
You'll be doing that today, then? I heard the funeral is early tomorrow.
Yes, and I'm thrilled to have the honor to dress him for such an important occasion. I'm thinking no tie.
Okay.
But first instincts, have you ever seen anything like this before? The markings on his back look like claws. Have there been any other animal attacks in the town?
Well, I guess that would depend on what you classify as an animal, because, you see, I don't consider certain insects animals.
Rita went on to explain that even in a town full of guns and heavy machinery, accidents rarely seemed to happen, and aside from a few bee stings, there were no animal-related injuries in recent memory.
She was also kind of creepy. She kept on saying things like,
As sad as it is, and believe me, I am mortified. Having a young, healthy person die is a positive thing. For science.
and
I've dabbled in taxidermy my entire life. I find the texture of old skin very comforting. Speaking of, would you like to see my latest project?
No!
Very well. But it's always a good idea to pay your respects to the dead. You never know if you'll end up one of them. I mean, you will. We all will. Die. That is, someday. Perhaps soon. One could hope. Well, me. I long for death. I can't speak for you.
If that was a threat, it wasn't very clear. And if it was a joke, it wasn't very funny.
I think that's just how she talked. And the other citizens of Connor Creek liked to talk as well. A lot of them were more than happy to share their feelings with us on Ryan or almost any subject at all. Truth be told, most people overshared. This is Helen, the town's only official civil servant.
No, I wasn't on duty last night when they found Ryan. My shift ended at 6, and I was home curled up with some Dorothy Parker short stories and a mojito. I keep my work very strictly within business hours or I'd never be able to turn it off. But don't think we treat the law flippantly here. We have tons of laws, and some of them are good too. We'll get to the bottom of this. Of course, that isn't my department. While my execution of governmental duties is the backbone of this town, I do more administrative tasks. I don't mean to brag, but I bring in 20% of the town council budget all on my own just from issuing tickets.
What kind of tickets, specifically?
Oh, all sorts of crimes and misdemeanors. Loitering, noise complaints, jaywalking, speed walking, crisp walking, questioning a civil servant about what kinds of tickets specifically she hands out in the line of duty.
And that wasn't the only ticket I received that day. Apparently I committed a street cleaning violation, standing in the way of civil servant who was sweeping the street. I would have happily moved aside if she had asked, but I suppose she had a quota to fill.
I mean, you should contest it. She wasn't even holding a broom. The Connor Creek lifestyle is definitely unique, partly because it's the sort of place where folks rarely lock their front doors or safety deposit boxes. Usually pretty quiet and uneventful, Ryan's death was the most tragic event to hit the town in a very long time. So along with heavy hearts came something else small towns do very well. gossip.
Yeah, I expect once the news of the murder gets out, there's gonna be a huge gush of thirsty customers dropping by my little hidden gem here.
Barney Fletcher lives near the outskirts of town. He's the owner of Fletcher's Hall of Curiosities and Wonders, and the town radio station's disc jockey.
Who said it was a murder?
Please, is the Pope shit in his hat?
Huh?
Y'all ever wonder why it's so big? Dang, lemmings, all of you. The real question is, how do they keep it so white and clean with all that poop in there?
Mr. Fletcher, I just want you to elaborate on the allegation of murder.
I need to spell it out for you big city slickers?
Yes,
Yes, please.
Fine. Now, it all started when I noticed a missing rock down by the river.
Barney
That's right.
eventually got around to explaining that Ryan had been getting more and more radical lately to counteract the pressing interest in the town's silver deposits by mining conglomerate Miner Mole. Ryan took to the streets, doing everything from staging protests on Center Road to petitioning for a drastic increase in the town council's mining oversight. Even people who had known him his entire life were beginning to think this was more extra than they'd ever seen him before.
This is our most heated election to date. And like it or not, with spirits running so high, it was only a matter of time before something like this happened. Which is why I'm in favor of shifting our local government to an octagonal monarchy. 8 branches, 1 queen.
This was a sentiment that a lot of the town shared.
A monarchy?
No, the first thing he said, about the town being a powder keg of political frustrations. And now, with a little context, Ryan's paranoid rants didn't seem so paranoid after all.
Now you kids jonesing to check out this egg or what? Hey, I'm telling you, this place is going to be packed to the gills once the drilling starts and the job leeches start their sucking. Yeah, I'm lucky I got my own thing going. I mean, hell, this egg is a true original. It's one of a kind. It's from one of those flying dinosaurs. Or as we call them in the curiosities business, old birds.
Yeah, sure, let's see it.
You're not going to regret it. Now, the egg exhibition is a separately ticketed entry, so we'll be paying with cash or credit. I can give you a press discount, but I will need to get my gazers on some credentials.
I'm sorry to say that we did indeed pay.
Out of pocket, with our per diem, didn't use the company card. God, I hope Leslie hears this.
Sometimes, to make an ally, you gotta overpay to see a stupid egg.
Hello, brother and sister.
Jeremiah Stillwater, the town's pastor.
Whoa, how did you know that?
How did I know what?
That we're brother and sister?
Yes, well, the Lord told me that. He works in mysterious ways.
So they'll be having Ryan's service here?
Well, thank you for assuming that. They should. But no, I don't think so. Religion isn't very, it's not very, we haven't quite, but it's not popular here. Yet.
Oh, sorry?
Oh, never you mind. Do not pity the meek, for when the drilling starts, the brethren and the sistren shall cometh, seeking to earn their daily bread, and they shall behold the reflection of God, reflected in the image of themselves, reflected also in the silver that they mine. Matthew 2:12.
So I'm guessing you're in favor of the Miner Mole expansion.
Ah, very observant. Have you considered becoming a lady of the cloth? The way I see it, the more people, the more sinners, the more souls I can save. And honestly, I'm a little modus desperatus for a congregation that takes salvation seriously. Okay, now which one of you will be confessing first?
Yeah, Jeremiah's a kook.
Back at the Dead Canary, Desmond echoed our feelings about the Reverend.
It's not that people don't practice religion here. It's that they don't want to practice with him. People in this town are unapologetically themselves.
Oh, so the opposite of Los Angeles.
Never been no interest in going.
Desmond, how do you feel about the presence of Miner Mole in town?
I feel like I'd get into trouble for sharing my particular opinions on that there recorder. Now let me get you both a drink.
But it's not even 5 o'clock yet.
Desmond, have you been down to the storeroom yet? How am I supposed to create a tasting menu if I can't sample the flavor profile of the liquor we'll be using? You said notes of spice, but does that mean black pepper or clove or paprika?
Believe it or not, I'm his boss. You two just help yourselves and I'll be back here shortly.
It's okay. Paul had his hands full, so we just dropped off some things before our meeting with Mr. Dockweiler.
We're doing special craft cocktails to commemorate the Reynolds boy. Ryan's Rye Manhattans with cinnamon and a lemon twist because, well, he was zesty, you know? Sad day.
Sad day. There was no better way to put it. My heart really felt for Madison with everything she was going through. Just like that, one day he was gone. I can't imagine how awful losing a sibling would be, even if they didn't always get along. Especially when your parents are gone, too.
Ugh, truly a nightmare. What would you say in my eulogy if I die before you?
Paul, that isn't funny.
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just trying to get some Ebenezer Scrooge insight on what my sister really thinks of me.
As we tried to unravel the mysterious circumstances surrounding Ryan's death, it quickly became clear that there was a pattern emerging. There were two subsets of people in Connor Creek, pro-mining and anti-mining, and although I initially misjudged him as an outlier because of his outlandish behavior and general twitchiness, Ryan's anti-miner mole position was representative of a legitimate demographic of Connor Creek.
Oh, I'm against the mining operation. It will completely destroy the town's macabre charm.
Things have worked well enough up until now. The budget is balanced. Why do we need more funding? Too much greed leads to terrible ends. And now I'm going to write you a ticket for asking a leading question to a municipal officer.
What was the question? Minor mole. Maybe I just haven't been properly convinced, but I'm personally against whatever hooey they've got planned for our little paradise. Though it's no surprise to me that this town is so torn over this election. The history of Connor Creek is one of progress and resistance to progress.
That's the town historian, Aubrey Dockweiler. More on him later.
To a large number of folks, Minor Mole was here to invigorate the sleepy town. But to just as many, the influx of jobs and capital would destroy everything they held so dear about their community. It seemed that this duality was not uncommon for Connor Creek, where public opinion routinely fell into two camps. Two sides of the same coin.
Well, in this case, the coin had three sides.
There aren't three sides to a coin, Paul.
But there are. When you flip a coin, it usually lands heads or tails. But every once in a while, because of spooky forces beyond our understanding, the coin lands on a third side, standing straight up on its edge.
And that edge is...
werewolves. Come on, they've been waiting for it since the prologue.
As much as I hate to admit it because of how rough that metaphor is, it's true. While we were at Aubrey's, we stumbled upon a book which hinted at an unusual chapter in Connor Creek's past. At the time, we thought werewolves were as unlikely as a coin balancing straight up on its edge. But as the death toll mounted, this unthinkable threat became
thinkable.
Poised to splinter the already fractured town in ways that might destroy Connor Creek forever. Next time on Wayward Guide.
So, you got any good dirt on Minor Mole?
Perhaps I can implore you to take that enormous microphone out of my face and conversate about any one of the multitude of interesting features of this town which aren't attracting so much controversy at the moment. Why, just the other day I was saying to Olivia, the owner of our wonderful ammunition shop, that, it is incredible. I was saying, wasn't I? I was saying it is just incredible how many picturesque hiking trails we have here in Connor Creek. Why don't you and your wife, your lover, sister, spend some time mapping the topography of these glorious mountains? Now, that is a noble calling. I can lend you a compass if you would like, and point you towards some excellent hiking boots. What are you, a size 10? I can tell by that hungry look in your eyes that hiking trails aren't what you were after. Tell you what, I do have some really very, very titillating dirt for you. Yes, let me give you the dirt on my job as an accountant. Oh, yes.
Tin Can Brothers presents Wayward Guide for the Untrained Eye. Starring
Mary-Kate Wiles
and
Steve Zaragoza.
Written and directed by Corey Lubowich, Joey Richter, and Brian Rosenthal. Featuring
Sinead Prasad,
Gavin Pickens,
Daniel Strauss,
Sean Prasad,
Dylan Saunders.
Corey Doris,
Nick Lang.
Andrew James Holmes.
and
Sean Astin.
original theme music, sound design, and mixing by Ears Up Sound Design. Executive producers Corey Lubowich, Joey Richter, and Brian Rosenthal, Paul Komorowski, and Greg Gibbons and April Morris. Go beyond the podcast and watch new episodes of the Wayward Guide Companion Series on YouTube. Please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, visit waywardguideshow.com or follow Tin Can Bros on Instagram and Twitter.